You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. Monsanto has settled with more than 200 people in Monroe, Washington, who were exposed to PCBs, toxic chemicals once produced by the company. Students, parents, and staff at the Sky Valley Alternative School in Snohomish County had filed lawsuits against Monsanto starting in 2018 after reporting significant illnesses. The amount of the settlement has not been revealed, but it looks to possibly be the largest settlement over PCB exposure at a single site. The Monroe School District had already offered plaintiffs tens of millions of dollars a few years ago for not properly clearing the campus of PCBs. Lulu Ramadan is a reporter for the Seattle Times who's been covering this story, and she joins me now. Lulu, thanks for being back on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So first off, I always think that this is one of those issues that people have heard about. They might not really truly understand the extent of PCB dangers and what they can do. So remind us, what are PCBs? How did they end up at this school?
Absolutely. So PCBs are a chemical preservative that was used in buildings in the 50s, 60s, up until the 70s when the EPA banned it. But essentially, it is a preservative that helps maintain the longevity of a building. So they're found in a lot of buildings that were intended to last for decades, so particularly government buildings. So it's not uncommon to find them in older schools, older government buildings, because you don't want to build a school that's only going to last 20 years. You want it to last 50, 60, 70 years. In this case, the PCBs were primarily found in building caulking and in fluorescent light fixtures. And that's how they got into classrooms and places where people at Sky Valley could be exposed to them.
And what do PCBs do to the body? Like, what kind of illnesses did people claim were linked to this exposure?
Yeah, those more than 200 people who'd been exposed at Sky Valley claimed a range of illnesses, things like brain damage, cancers, respiratory illnesses. There are some claims that people died of their illnesses as well. And it's a little complicated because different federal agencies have found links to health impacts from exposure to PCBs, but it's really hard to tell depending on the level. And there are strong recommendations for how much exposure a given person should have indoors. So, but it was a range of really serious illnesses.
So remind me how this went down, because the legal challenges have included the school district. Like, the district has paid out $34 million. That was in 2022 to plaintiffs. It was the highest amount that the district's insurance allowed. And this money came with the district accepting no responsibility for what happened at Sky Valley. But what was the district accused of? Like, why did they have to come to the table with such a large settlement if this was a Monsanto chemical?
That's right. So it's a really great question because the original lawsuits were targeted at both Monsanto as the manufacturer of PCBs and at the school district for failing to clear the campuses adequately of PCBs when they were made aware of them. So back in 2022, we done an investigation into what happened at Sky Valley, and students for the Sky Valley Education Center moved into a former middle school in 2011. And there had been reports about problems with ventilation as early as 2013. And that's important because when you have any kind of toxicant or chemical in the air, you want to make sure that there's less exposure from ventilation, from proper ventilation. But from 2014 on, staff were reporting things like light failures. So they were leaking this like yellow film that's known to have PCBs. They were getting into carpets and furniture, places where they can still exist and be where people in a room can be exposed to them.
I remember you telling us about the yellow foam. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, it's a weird and interesting little detail, a way that you can pretty much find out that PCBs have leaked into and out of a light fixture and into a room. And so the school district tried to remove those light fixtures in particular and made attempts to clear the campus of those PCBs after health inspectors and contractors had found excessive levels. But ultimately, the state and the EPA had to step in to force the district to meet certain deadlines and accelerate that attempt to clear the campus. And at some point, the Monroe School District actually told the EPA that it had solved the problem, but testing later revealed that there were still PCBs present on campus.
So 34 million in a settlement with the district, and now this Monsanto settlement, we don't know the exact number, but can you tell me more about how they came to have to offer this large payment? Because, the chemicals are banned a long time ago. Monsanto had stopped producing them. If this was an issue of the district not cleaning things up, how does Monsanto end up on the hook here?
So Monsanto's actually been the target of several lawsuits by governments, for instance, municipal governments and state governments, including the state of Washington, because it manufactured these PCBs. And most of those lawsuits have a common thread, which is the allegation that Monsanto was aware of the toxicity of PCBs and didn't warn the public adequately and didn't make changes. And so these lawsuits come with dozens, like you're talking about scores of documents, internal documents going all the way back to the 70s and earlier, where they were basically what they're claiming is evidence that Monsanto was aware of the harms of PCBs and just didn't take action soon enough.
So there are still some pending court cases around PCBs and Monsanto. What's the status of those?
So the ones related to Sky Valley, this settlement resolves almost all of the cases relating to people exposed at that Monroe school, all but 9 pending cases that are in the appeals process right now. And where those stand, basically, juries decided in part or in whole in favor of the plaintiffs, the people who filed these lawsuits against Monsanto, but they were taken up to the appeals court level, and a Washington appeals court essentially reversed that decision. But now the first of those cases has been taken up by the Washington Supreme Court. So they're awaiting those decisions. So we don't know how those cases are going to go, but it's pretty interesting because the first of those cases involved 3 teachers and one of their spouses who claimed serious health impacts from these exposures. And a jury decided in their favor, granting $185 million, just to give some context to how large these cases have been.
And there's been a lot of these cases. I mean, do we have a sense of how much Monsanto is potentially on the hook for related to PCBs and exposure in Washington?
I have no idea, no way to wrap my head around it. I will say that Bayer, which is the pharmaceutical company that acquired Monsanto in 2018, said that this settlement, while the financial details of it are confidential, they described the settlement as the most significant and largest by plaintiff pool that they've experienced since acquiring Monsanto. So that's a pretty big deal just to show the scale, the severity of this one campus, this one school, and those exposures.
Wow. We're talking with Lulu Ramadan, who's been covering the issue of PCB exposure at the Sky Valley Alternative School in Snohomish County, and the Monroe School District's response and Monsanto's response and the legal jeopardy that they're in for years now for the Seattle Times. Lulu, before we go, PCBs, obviously, they've been banned for many years. There are these big legal battles over who should be responsible for the health fallout, the really serious health concerns that they've caused for some people. Do you know if there is more PCB in buildings that has not been uncovered that could be affecting people right now?
Absolutely. It's very, very much possible. So, like I mentioned earlier, PCBs were a really common preservative used in construction in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So, there are a lot of buildings, particularly schools, that still exist to this day that were built at the time. And that's something that's been widely acknowledged. There's no real way to know. I mean, this example really came to light with Sky Valley Education Center because so many people had come forward about health impacts, had reported it to the county health district, to the school district, and filed those lawsuits, which just kind of caused a ripple effect. But there's no real accounting nationwide of how many of these schools or other government buildings might still have these PCBs, and those light fixtures in particular, which are known to fail at some point. They're not meant to last forever. And those are a pretty common way that they start to seep into rooms. So yeah, there's no accounting of it, so there's no way to know, but one big tell would be how old the building is.
Lulu Ramadan is a reporter for the Seattle Times. Really important work that you've done following this over the years, Lulu, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. And hey, this show is only possible because listeners support us. If you are able to give right now, check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m., Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.